Hi, good morning. My name is Evan Sanchez, and I would like to welcome you to another episode of Springboard Your Biz TV. I'm the author of Sell Like a Champ and also Cracking the Rich Code. I work as a management consultant, and I also get to do really cool things like interview experts in their field about what they do and share those secrets with you on Springboard Your Biz TV. Today my guest is going to be Erika Warfield. She's the owner of erikawarfield.com and a fractional VP of sales consultant and coach. We're going to dive into digital marketing. We're going to talk about your forgotten trifecta of strategic growth and much, much more. So welcome to the show, Erika. Great to have you.
Thank you, Evan.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to doing this for a long time.
Very long time.
We get to work together, we get to talk together, we get to share stories, and I was like, wow, you got to come on the show and let's talk a little bit more about what we're doing, what we're seeing that's successful out in the market as far as virtual sales, and how to teach people to be a virtual sales champ.
It's important. Everything moved to Zoom, and I think people are just now realizing, I just saw an email go out or a Slack message go out saying, hey, we need to keep our cameras on. And I thought, do you think? That might be good.
You know, I saw an email yesterday where there was a CEO of, I think it's Citibank, was saying they're going to have no Zoom Fridays because people are starting to get Zoom fatigue. So again, here we go with this flip-flop of everything that's going on, and everybody's still trying to figure out, how do we find success? How do we do business in this new work environment?
Right. Well, I guess that's their version of casual Friday then, just no Zoom Friday. So I can just show up, no makeup, no hair, no button pants, wear my elastic waistband. But, you know, I think the thing with Zoom is, you know, people buy from who they know, like, and trust.
Right.
And you might be able to do that in-house for an in-house meeting, but doing it on a discovery call, I can't imagine. And I see people attempting to do that or talking about that, and they think their headshot is enough to have in the discovery call. And the bottom line is, whomever you're speaking to knows you're either rolling your eyes or you're doing something you shouldn't be on the other side of that headshot.
Right, you're
so
multitasking, or you're eating a hamburger or doing something that you shouldn't do. That's the perception anyway,
Yes.
whether it's true or not, right?
Right.
So we all definitely have to pay attention to these perceptions and, you know, what's going on in the new environment, and we really have to figure out new ways to break through what I call the craposphere, right? So there's not only the crap that other people are putting out there and all of the different social media channels and all of the different ways to go out and get business, but then there's also all the stuff on the internal side. So people have internal meetings and they have internal messages that they have to put through. And there's a lot of different ways to try to break through and really, you know, be a good leader or even be a good salesperson or try to drive sales. So we're trying to do our best to talk a lot about that. And so when it comes to sales, the marketing has really kind of blended into sales. And I think this is where we're going to talk about your trifecta here in a little bit. But when you hear terms like sales enablement and things like that, that's really what we're getting at, is that in this new sales environment, I can't just go to a networking function and say, hey, this is the type of person that I'm looking for. This is what my buyer looks like, and here's what my product or service does for you.
Right.
That's been our biggest challenge, right?
Right.
So, like, where do we go to find people now?
You know, for me anyway, because I've been working remotely for quite a long time. So virtual sales sort of came naturally when this shift happened.
Yeah.
And so it was always LinkedIn. But when you talk about, you know, the craposphere, I mean, there's a lot of that going on LinkedIn right now. There's a lot of insincerity. There's a lot of canned messaging going on in the direct messaging. So nobody wants to even open up their direct messaging. And I think people are forgetting that this has always been about not you. This has been about your prospect and building the relationship. And nobody's wanting to put the effort to build the relationship first.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of sad what we're seeing on LinkedIn. So
well, that's the craposphere, right? It's just getting
completely
thicker and thicker and thicker. And so then, I think conversely, it actually ends up playing into the benefit of somebody who is willing to do that extra step.
It's easier to stand out.
Yes.
I mean, if you're worried that, oh, I'm never going to get through, no, you absolutely can. And what Evan was talking about with, you know, the forgotten trifecta and how there's this merging and this blending of sales and marketing is absolutely true. Because marketing, you know, the old school marketing, they do know old school. They sometimes know new school. They certainly don't know guerrilla warfare on LinkedIn. And then you've got your salespeople. And when the salespeople understand how to market, how to do a call to action, how to write a compelling headline, how to tap into what stage of awareness does your prospect even have of you or your company or your product, and then you gear it towards them and not about yourself, and you provide value, boom, you are breaking through. Because oftentimes the canned message automatically has that silly little calendar link, assuming you're going to click it.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, that's
right.
just one step. Don't put the calendar link,
right.
and you'll break through.
It's always about the conversation that's taking place in your prospect's head. Mm-hmm. And if you can somehow tap into that and find some way to resonate with them, that's what's going to get their attention. That was the whole idea behind, you know, in a sales process when you put together some type of pitch. Mm-hmm. You know, the whole idea is to pique their interest. So none of that's changed. But the mediums that we have to go about getting in front of people, that's what's kind of created that craposphere. So here's a question for you. So Sales Navigator or no Sales Navigator on the tool side?
I would definitely say Sales Navigator, and the reason for that is this: you have to know who your avatar is. And when I say avatar, that is your ideal client, that is your ideal prospect. So not only do you have to have your profile with all the keywords right, because keywords are to LinkedIn the way SEO is to a website, you know, that's all got to be in order. Then you bring in Sales Navigator to do your targeting, and you've got to get that avatar, your ideal client. You've got to know the demographic. You've got to know what keeps them up at night. You've got to know what they're Googling to find the solution. And above all else, you've got to be prepared to realize they're on a hero's journey, and your job is to be the sage to get them up the mountaintop. Speaking of getting into their heads.
Yeah. So I've heard some other people talking about this, where they're like, you know, hey, we're really taking a new step at this. We're really trying to gear our language towards that of the customer and making them the hero versus us coming in as the expert and the hero that's going to save your day with our product or service. And so it was interesting because I was like, well, isn't that the with them? Like, what's in it for me? That's always been there in sales, right? But when you're driving and you're trying to make a quota or you're trying to make a number, a lot of times we forget about the customer being the hero, and we forget about what's in it for them. We know that we have a product, maybe we're confident, right, that we can help them, but it really is about being there to help them, not necessarily to sell them. And I like the word sage and hero. So, you know, what do you see? Do you see that other people are out there kind of making that switch, or do you think that's a problem that you've recognized in the craposphere?
I think people are entrenched in the craposphere.
Yeah.
And I think there's maybe a couple of people who understand that. It is the #1 radio station in the land with them, WIIFM,
Right.
What's in it for me. You know, I can think of a couple people who, this has been around for decades. You know, Mary Kay Ash, founder of Mary Kay, was always like, talk to people, treat people as if they have a sign over their head that says, make me feel important. You know,
Right.
Simon Bowen of the Models Method, I have to, you know, give him a shout out. You know, he really kind of came up with this concept of, you are not the hero. Your prospect is the hero. Everybody is on a hero's journey.
Yeah.
And they're already up one mountaintop, and everybody's acting like they ain't even made it up the first mountaintop. They've made it up one mountaintop. Now they're kind of coming down in the valley, and you are that sage to help them get through that valley and up the next mountaintop. And so it's all about giving them the skills and whatever, if that's your service, if that's your product, but making them be the hero and recognizing that. So I love that.
And cheering them along the way, right? I think that's one of the cool things too when we talk about, you know, like I said, my problem is a lot of people go, what exactly is it that you do as a consultant? And a lot of times we're meeting them where they're at. So even if they're at the very beginning, you know, in our stages of inception, survival, growth, expansion, and maturity, as far as the business model goes, even at inception, they're still the hero. They're still embarking on their dream, right? They're still going after, and in some cases, that's the most exciting person to talk to, because the enthusiasm and everything is there that you really want to see with somebody you're working with. So, you know, let's talk a little bit more about the marketing side of things. So we talk about the buyer behavior, right? You still have to talk about what's in it for them, because you're always looking at, you know, making your first impression. And now that we can't make a first impression at a networking event or a speaking event or something to that effect, hopefully that'll change soon. But for now, we still have to find a way to spark somebody's interest, right? There's got to be some kind of stimulus that we have. Then once they've sparked some interest or we've said something, you know, my wife is much better at this than I am, but they'll typically automatically go to Google. And at Google, that's where the research starts, all the price comparison starts. That's where you start to see what somebody else has said about the product, how many stars do they have, what is the good, what is the bad, and then they'll actually move towards what we call the moment of truth, which is if it's online, they may go ahead and make the purchase, or they may actually call the salesperson. Now, how many times do you have people calling on you?
Well, you'd be surprised, because it's not just for me with LinkedIn, it's not just about Sales Navigator, it's about creating, and when I do my outreach, it's also the way in which one posts on LinkedIn. You know, you always want to be visible on LinkedIn. You want to be so visible you can't be ignored, but in a way where you're always giving the freebie, you're always giving the value, you're always helping people up their mountaintop, even in your posts. So, you know, that is a form of like a fish attracting device, you know. We talk about that all the time in System 1357, you know, and if you have a great fish attracting device where you're creating that value, you're building that relationship, people aren't so prone to go to Google as much because they can just go to LinkedIn. 75% of B2B decision makers are on LinkedIn using it to vet. You know, and in a way, it's almost the new Yellow Pages. So if your profile's all in order and they go to your feed and they see, wow, this person is constantly giving value, she's backing up what she's telling me, I can trust her. Absolutely. You know, it's a win-win. It's all about creating win-wins. And when you said that about networking events, I just thought, they'll go back to the whole, I bought a book, buy it, you know, when they're at their networking event even. And the introvert in me ran scared because I like doing this virtually versus in person. So. Yeah, so it was a great fit for you. Absolutely. I was rejoicing. Absolutely. Well, you definitely have to, you know, do some new things to get leads. And I love the way that you show value. A lot of times when I look at your posts and I see your clients in there, right? And I see home pages for people and you're driving traffic, and that's part of the value that you're creating, right? So, you know, what do they do? You know, one of the things that we try to tell people is when they work with us and they say, well, we want to drive, you know, more sales. And one of the things I'll ask them is, well, how many leads are you getting right now? Because I know that the next question coming back is, what's going to be the ROI of our investment? Right. And a lot of times people aren't getting leads, or they don't know how many leads they're getting. They're just going out and doing their best to drive business. And they don't really know what's actually bringing it in. And so you also have to look at other things on the digital marketing side in order to make sure that you're not losing the leads that you're actually creating or the interest that you're sparking. So you really have to pay attention to, you know, where are you sending people? You know, what does that landing page look like? What exactly are you trying to get them to do? Like you said, what's the next step? What's the clear call to action? Right? Always the next step that's moving them through the process. Because if you don't do those things, right? If you don't have all your marketing in place, such as your advertising, your listings correct and SEOs, you don't have good reviews, you've got to have different social media channels, you've got to have different ways for people to find you, because that's how they learn to know, like, and trust you. Because that's all part of the digital marketing stack that ultimately brings you to your leads. And if you don't have all of these pieces together,
what you can end up doing with, say, a negative reputation is end up spending advertising money or SEO money or a lot of time, energy, and effort, and end up advertising for the competition. Because if somebody out there has something similar to what you're offering, and they've got a better presence, and they've got better reviews, and they've got better, all that work that you've done is going to end up going over into their bucket. And that's what you really don't want. So, you know, from the sales and marketing stack part of it, that's what I try to caution my clients with the most. Yes, you need all of these things, and you need to be providing value, and you need to be sparking interest, but when you get that lead, what exactly are they doing, and how well do you follow through? So, you know, there's also this other side of things, right, where, you know, the virtual sales environment isn't all just passive. And then there's the outreach of the sales executive. So let's talk more about your trifecta, because that's really where the trifecta comes into play, because it's really that bridge of sales enablement. It's really that bridge between the digital marketing stack and the outreach now of the salesperson. Not just getting the passive lead, but also all working together.
Right.
So tell us about how all that works and builds upon each other.
Well, I think the first thing, once you have your avatar dialed in, and
avatar would be persona or ideal customer, that type of thing, right?
Right, and you start doing your outreach. First of all, there's a lot of people, I think, on LinkedIn that have companies that will say, I can guarantee X many leads, I can do this, I can do that. And it doesn't mean that they're qualified. It doesn't mean that that company even knows who your ideal candidate is.
I always say there's a difference between a suspect and a prospect.
Exactly. Exactly. And you don't know, I mean, a lot of them have that canned messaging, and that doesn't really work. Even though you're using Sales Navigator, it's still best to do your own personal outreach, you know, to show that you've been to their profile, that you can speak on it. But when you do have that forgotten trifecta, you know, the myth is, oh, I'm always going to be dealing with the gatekeeper. Oh, I'm not going to get the CEO. Oh, the CEO is going to be rude, or I'm going to get passed around. But the bottom line is, if you're doing it right with Sales Navigator, your personal outreach, finding what makes them tick from moment one when you do that outreach, you know, through the DMs or however you choose to do it. What I have found is you do the end run around on the gatekeeper, you're getting right to the CEO, you're providing value immediately. I have had the former CMO of the entire Ford Motor Corporation reach back out to me and say, oh my gosh, I cannot believe what you just shared with me. This is amazing. And when we actually had our discovery call, at the end of it, he was so kind. I almost started crying. He just said, I have hired people, you know, graduating from the Wharton School of Business, University of Chicago, Harvard. You just blew me away with all of them. You know, so if you do it right, these CEOs will love you. They will absolutely love you. So don't be afraid. And I think the other important thing about that with the avatar is, I think everybody's forgetting, do your income producing activity in the morning. That means your prospecting needs to happen in the morning. Don't wait until the afternoon, because you won't feel like doing it in the afternoon.
Yeah, you know, when you're a business owner, there's also another way of going about that, but you know, we talk about that in Sell Like a Champ, and I'm sure you've heard the MMA, what's your money making activity, and try and get that out first thing. And if you don't get your prospecting out first thing, you don't get your important follow-ups first thing, you're probably not going to get your best focus or your best attention to that. So not only are you being sure to get your money-making activity out first doing that, but you're also ensuring you're getting your best work out to those people as well.
Right.
So, you know, as a business owner, I try to get some of the other money-making activities out of the way too. You know, if it's a invoicing thing, or it's a following up on that next step, or getting that debrief out, something to that effect, I kind of try to mix both of those in the morning as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then the third component of all of that, because it affects invoicing, you know, it does affect all of that, is the copywriting part. So it's, you know, virtual sales, it's digital marketing, and then it's copywriting. And copywriting is such a key component. And people get that confused, thinking, oh, well, I'm a content writer, or wrote in high school. And it's like, no, I highly encourage people to study up on what is true copywriting. Because copywriting is about compelling action, not in a manipulative way, so to speak, but there is a bit of that goes on when you have to get in somebody's head. But, you know, just creating that value and understanding what it is that they need, and copywriting will always generate income. Content writing does not.
Yeah, I know that that's always been a struggle for me because I've written a book and there's blog posts that I would write, but then I would turn it over to somebody who did more copywriting or who was just a better writer in general, and they always made it like 10 times better. And it always got 10 times better results whenever those people would help me because they understood that. So were you professionally trained for that?
I took it seriously. I was not professionally trained. I studied it. I studied all the great copywriters. I went back, I was looking at direct mail pieces from the 1930s. You know, when you had a postcard mailed to you, and so what was going to trigger that? And a lot of those same techniques are applicable today, and some of the best copywriters for like Agora Financial, you know, they use those type of techniques. But I was studying Paris Lampropoulos, I was studying Frank Kern. I mean, there were so many that I was studying. And I mean, just changing it up and realizing people are scanning and scrolling. Quit writing long form paragraphs. That's a simple tip. Keep it to 1 or 2 sentences per paragraph. Be prepared to break all the rules that you learned in high school where a paragraph must be 2 sentences. No, they're scanning and scrolling. And so, and knowing that the weight of your text has to be in the headlines and using a lot of headlines. You know, it's not rocket science, but people have to be willing to step aside and say, if I am the solopreneur, I better learn how to do this.
Exactly. And that's where I was saying that I have to do MMA activity in the morning as a solopreneur. And then as a solopreneur, I also have to make sure I'm doing my prospecting. So now you can start to see how the virtual sales champ, if you will, is having to do multiple things and utilize multiple different types of technology in order to gain traction, break through the craposphere. It really is a big, big job when it comes down to generating revenue in trying to break through the craposphere. So give me another example, if you will, of, you know, something that is part of the trifecta that surprises people.
Part of the trifecta that surprises people. I think that they're just not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one that I see that you do is that you really personalize it.
Very much.
Right, I see that one. That's what stood out to me. And then once I saw the personalization and I went back into your profile, then I saw it go deeper and I saw that connection. That was one of the reasons I connected with you in the very beginning. I told you it was because of the copywriting,
right,
and the following that you had and what you were creating. So I don't think that people realize that, okay, there also has to be some following. Right? There's still people that go, oh, I don't want to connect with that person on LinkedIn because I don't really know them. I want to keep a small group of people connections on LinkedIn.
Well, they don't understand. There's a couple of things that you touched on, and thank you so much because that was a wonderful compliment because I really, really tried. So I'm going to try and break that down in terms of the copywriting, you know, because this can happen with your about on your website. It can happen with your about on your LinkedIn. It can, whatever bio you may have out there, it's really not about you. So the copywriting on that is flipping it and making it be about the hero that's reading it, and not so much about you. I mean, you have to talk about you, but you position it from more about them.
Yeah, that's the hard part. That's hard.
It's a really hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to capture. But that's the first part of it. I think the second part of it is I just went blank completely.
Well, we were talking about how it has to be personalized.
It does. Right? It does have to be personalized, and I think a lot of people are afraid to put their personality out there.
Yeah.
Entirely, and people, again, they can see if you are willing to show your personality, that is going to break through the craposphere because everybody else is trying to be perfect and prim. And just yesterday, I put out a video of me doing a lip sync challenge to the Jackson 5.
Yeah.
That's me. People are tired of seeing the veneer and then wondering, you know,
Yeah.
they just want to feel safe. That
Yeah.
was the other part that I was getting to. It's very important for people to feel safe right now.
Yeah.
And if you can include that in your copy, that's even better.
Well, I think the other key is to make it fun, and that's what you did with that video yesterday. I think people are getting zoomed out. I think people are tired of sitting in front of the screens. And I think now when you start to see and hear, you know, CEOs that are calling for no Zoom Fridays, and you start to see more fun things like that, it's like, okay, people, this is part of the way we do business now. We've got to relax a little bit. You know, we've got to have some fun with it. And really kind of, that's always been key to any sales, is adding some kind of humor and having some fun along the way. So you're doing a great job with it. Thank you for talking to us about the trifecta.
You.
So today's been another great example of the learning that will take place even beyond today's show in our community at springboardyourbiz.com. So right now the community is still free. Of course, we're also looking for people to subscribe to the channel. We're going to have some more shows and some more interviews and things coming up over the months ahead. So look forward for new content and new ways for us to help you springboard your biz to the next level. Next month, we're going to be talking about cash flow. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the financial side of the business. We're going to start bringing in some of the numbers and the bean counters and the stuff that's always the hardest for me to run as a business. But we're going to talk a little bit about what they're seeing. And of course, there's all kinds of taxes and crazy things that are going on with the government incentives and what's coming out to help us along the way. You can go to springboardyourbiz.com, join that community. Like I said, the first 50 are free. That's a $600 value. We've also got some other things that are going to come out on Springboard Your Biz TV, like opportunities to be on the show. So if you're interested in coming on the show, maybe being part of a future panel of sorts, then fill out the request form at springboardyourbiz.com and we'll be happy to contact you and see where you're the best fit. You'll also see mastermind forums and group coaching programs. All of this is designed to help you utilize video and digital marketing and help you break through the craposphere in 2021 so that we can help you be a success. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the community, and I hope today's show helps you today, tomorrow, and in the future. Thanks for tuning in.